Kyle Ellicott, and we've got an exciting show again for you here on VCTV. As we do every single day, we bring the latest around technology, industries, and regions around the world to keep you up to date so you know who to make investments, what industries to start making investments in, and as entrepreneurs, where and what to start building. Also, who's investing in this space, which we all know when it comes to building a company, it's great to know who the great investors are, but also who you could partner with as your company grows and scales and when the time is relevant as well. And today's topic, we're talking about something very dear and close to me here. We're going back along with a few of our guests. We're going back to the farm. We are talking about farming, agriculture, and ag tech in general. There's a ton that we've talked about here on VCTV, whether that's from the Internet of Things to our food and supply chains to everything else in between. This is where it all begins. And so we've brought on some of the best and the brightest, not just investors, but as they will share with us as well, farmers, to also share a little bit of the insights of not how just technology is being applied in general on a macro level around the world in these industries, but also on a micro level, what they're doing, what they're seeing, what they're investing in, and how they may be using it as well live in the field. So all puns intended, but a ton of fun today, a lot to talk about. And we've got, again, great investors that will be sharing that with us. Now, before we get started, like we do here on every episode, I want to thank you, our audience, for tuning in. If you like what you hear today, please do click subscribe down there in the corner and do reach out, as we would love to have you as an investor on the show to share your thoughts and insights around technology, industries, and regions around the world, whether it be ag tech, blockchain, fintech, supply chain, transportation, biotech, anything in between, quantum as well. We are here to talk about these types of topics that are trending and that are happening now to prepare us all. Entrepreneurs, guess what? It's not just a show for us as investors. This is also a show for you as entrepreneurs. There is a virtual stage here for you on VCTV to get up on and pitch us as investors along with our live audience. What you're building, what you're selling, it's a great opportunity for exposure for your company and also to get outstanding feedback from our investors. We'll match you up not just with the right investor set, but also those focused on your industry and topic as well. So do reach out to Emmanuel, Maria, and or the entire LA Tech team and myself. We are here to talk with you at any time about the opportunity. Now, with that, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and Emmanuel for the entire help and everything that they do to make VCTV possible every single day for you. Thank you, Irina. With that, let's go ahead and kick it off and introduce each and every one of our guests. Irina, welcome back. I know you're on the farm, but if you can, just share a little thoughts and insights with each of us on your background.
Thank you for having me back. I started my day with the Singapore VCTV today. That was amazing. We were actually talking about the food and sustainability. And what a great way for, to continue my day with this discussion, because they're just so, they're so connected. My name is Irina Litchfield. I am a president of Lumeria. Lumeria is where capital meets innovation. Our target is the growth companies. So traction, if you have traction, you need money for traction, come talk to me. I'm here. All kinds of innovations, which is really exciting. I'm also founder of Blockchain Cubed, which is a blockchain integrating firm. So we build high-level infrastructure for companies to be able to create the blockchain solutions for them. Mainly finance, but also double with other things. One of the projects we're working on right now is actually has something to do with this subject, which is amazing. I'm also an owner of farm. This whole new recent excitement and changes in lives and challenges of life brought us to a point to where we started kind of raising our own animals. We have a milking cow, we have the chickens, we have the ducks. We're doing that in the middle of the city on the 2.5 acres of land. We have a garden. You name it, potbelly pig, goats, we got it all. And then that really motivated us to invest in a farm. So now we own a farm and we're concentrating on regenerative farming. So I'm really excited and thankful for being on this, talking about this subject, and thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us again. I mean, this is an important subject to you. I know you've talked about it here for the past few episodes of VCTV and how technology has been playing a role into not just the farm, but also to some of the efforts that you guys have on the farm and some of the things that are surrounding it as well. And so we're super excited to hear more about that today, as it's all relevant as well. And welcome back, Brian. I think you might be, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, yes. Hi.
Wonderful. Welcome back to the show. It's been a pleasure to see you, and little intro, little background.
It's great to see you again, Kyle. Nice to meet everyone. I'm investing primarily these days. I mean, from the vent. I also I'm a big fan of ducks, Irina. So we'll have to talk about ducks sometime. At the height of my duck flock, we had 27 ducks, which was a little too much for my wife. So we scaled it back to 6 or 7, which is a really good number for a home flock. I'm investing in food across the food chain, primarily in 2 different ways. I work with Almanac Insights, which is a venture fund, sort of sustainability focused venture fund in New York City. We invest across the food chain, from hospitality and food service brands like Sweet Green to CPG and grocery, like Spindrift, like Good Culture, and also invest in tech across the food chain. So we're pretty agnostic, but really looking for investments that are having a transformative positive impact on the food chain, very much from the regenerative ag perspective, as Irina mentioned. And then I'm also working with Belltown Farms, which is an organic farmland fund, and have been leading an effort to find a farm for us in Columbia County, New York, where we will farm organic small grains. Belltown also is actively farming in 3 Midwestern states, and has a strategy to essentially buy very productive, underpriced American farmland and convert it to organic, and develop it around those organic premiums and the big bottlenecks that still exist in that supply chain. And it's been a very exciting time to be in food, of course, when it was has been deemed an essential industry in so many ways. And although there's a lot of real trauma, there's also a lot of forced digital evolution happening in the food chain, and so opportunities also to improve in terms of reducing waste, improve efficiency, and actually make it a healthier, more stable food chain, ideally.
Absolutely. And thank you, Brian. We're super excited again to have you back, and love the efforts that you and Belltown have been putting together. I know we've talked offline and also online about that, and just really appreciative of all the work that you guys are doing. So big thank you and a shout out to Belltown Farms as well. And last but not least, Wendy, welcome to the show. I know you got a ton to talk about. We've been talking pre-show. It is now the time. Here's the spotlight for you. A little intro, a little background, if you can, for the audience as well, please.
Hi, I'm Wendy, and I am the founder of LDP Ventures, and we are a seed investment fund that funds only impact. So I'm very much an impact investor, anything that's going to make this world a positive place, right? So in the food sector, I'm involved in a company called Producers Market. They are bringing traceability, transparency, as well as storytelling to the supply chain, and to enable retailers such as like Walmart, et cetera, to really, when you go in there, to scan the barcode and see exactly what farmer actually farmed your food and how did they farm it. So one of my things is I'm very much involved in working with the United Nations and with governments and so forth, because I also have a foundation called Women's Entrepreneurship Day organization. We're in 144 countries around the world. And so what we do is we bring governments, business leaders, civil society together to collaborate to find solutions to uplift women in business. So one of the most important things is supporting women farmers. And so that's why I got involved with Producers Market. We have a partnership with the government of India, the United Nations Environmental Program, where we are putting on 6 million impoverished farmers that have about 1 hectare of land. And we're, working with those co-ops to enable them to earn more money. Also, they're going to be having equity in our company and to enable them to have better outputs. For instance, with our partnership with IBM and Walmart. So working around the world in that, we have initiatives in the Caribbean with all the Caribbean countries. We also have a big initiative in Brazil with the Amazon rainforest. Giselle Bundchen, the supermodel, just invested in our company. So we're really working on how do we enable from a ground up approach to enable all those farmers to have a more equity in the supply chain and to bring traceability so that when you go to a store and you scan that barcode, you can actually follow on Instagram that woman farmer that has 1 hectare of land in the state of Andhra Pradesh in India, and know that they stopped using fertilizers and pesticides and went back to the old ancient practices of manure, sugarcane, and urine, which doesn't sound very good. But anyways, it's a better way to, fertilize your land. So anyway, so that's what I'm involved with. I'm involved in energy, agriculture, fintech, but everything I invest in is going to make a huge impact to make this world a better place. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you for joining us. Wonderful for all 3 of you to be here today and also to share these thoughts and insights. And there's so much to unpack today around today's topic. Again, ag tech or agriculture technology and farming, how technology is being applied in this entire value chain. Again, from the farm to the table and beyond as well. There's so much to talk about. So let's go ahead and dive right in. And Brian, you touched on this, so I'm going to start with you first. Is the digitization of what we're doing around our food value chain is happening faster than ever. It's been forced in some cases, and also tons of advancements have been long in the works and finally are here as technology and the industry have started to catch up. So where are things currently from your view around ag tech and farming today as you're looking at all sides of this from all perspectives?
It's happening in a lot of different ways, really everywhere. As we talked about a few months ago when we had, we're talking about grocery and food delivery. We're all now so used to imagining ordering food online and getting it delivered to our door that we forget that 2 years ago, very few people were doing this. And even 1 year ago, there were not that many. In America, at least, online grocery was still a fraction of the grocery market. And that very quickly has swelled to 25%, 30% in many cases. And traffic at grocery stores is way down. So people are shifting in that other way. And that just gives one sense of all the different reverberations throughout the food chain. I've been really fascinated recently. I think the growth I'm seeing and the innovation that is just really taking over is you think about restaurants who've now been in a situation, and I mean everyone from a Chipotle and a quick serve to a mom and pop restaurant who maybe had no need for reservations before, no need to tell their customers, you're going to show up this time and your food's going to be ready. And the fact that you are not necessarily having people come indoors, that restaurants are closed, that delivery and takeout has become a much bigger part of business, it's forced every restaurant to have some sort of reservation platform, some sort of easy online ordering platform, rather than calling up and sort of, and the time wasted from the restaurant's perspective of not knowing exactly when people were going to show up and what they were going to have. So I've spoken to many restaurant owners, especially small ones, who said, geez, I can't believe we didn't think of doing this years ago. It would have streamlined our business in so many ways. And then on the complete other end, you're seeing farmer transactions that used to be very sort of hand to hand when a farmer was dropping grain at the elevator. And even those interactions are becoming digitized in a way that the farmer's still delivering her grain to the elevator, but no paper is changing hands. It's all done through phones. It's all digital money transfers. And in fact, that's resulting in the fact that's allowing farmers to get paid days or weeks earlier than they were before. So there's all these sort of unpredictable things that are happening, but all the platforms that were trying to do this, all of a sudden they've got tons and tons of new customers.
Which is the name of the game. But I think what you're bringing up too around the fintech angle, really just focusing on that back office as we will refer to it and have in the past as well. It's just making that a much more streamlined process from an invoicing to transaction type process. I mean, getting paid daily, weekly changes the game, as you mentioned, for someone in the food industry in general, and how that can lead to from microtransactions or micro payments to the future of how they build their business and to the future of how food grows as well. So tons more to come back to on that. Irina, to you, what are you seeing in the current state around agriculture technology or ag tech and farming as well?
Yes. Okay. Usually, I have this positive message, empowering, and seeing the world in, through the beauty of all the good things that we are able to do. I would like to just start with one important kind of a statement. We are facing extinction. Okay, it is not the air that's killing us. It's not the climate that's going to kill us. What's going to kill us is hunger, because we are losing topsoil, and we're losing it at such a rapid rate that it is mind-boggling. And the more you look at it, the more you understand what happened to all the civilizations. Remember, they overfarmed, they killed their topsoil, poof, everybody wipes out. So topsoil, saving topsoil is the number one priority I believe we must concentrate on. The beauty of it is that as we save topsoil, we really kind of fix the problems, a lot of energy problems. We fix climate, right? Because we allow Earth to really cool off. I mean, on my land at the farm, we're experiencing completely different weather, right? Like it's a really, really great. Now we bought land in the middle of the country. Right, so on purpose we bought it deep into the country where civilization is different. So I think that to us, I think that's the number one thing that we must concentrate on. And so the trends that I'm seeing is actually in this reach. A lot of people luckily are aware of that, and they're investing money in that. So one of the things that we're developing right now is saying, how can we reward farmers? And now when we talk about farmers in America, that's not a little farmer, that farmer who is doing a work. These are huge sections, okay? People use thousands and thousands and thousands of acres to do the industrial crop growing. Right? So, I mean, that's the reality of kind of the life. And so when we think about farmers in America, these are not poor, decentralized people. There's a huge land grab that's going on, and they're doing huge damage, okay, to what is happening and the supply chain of food. Now, right now, they're not willing to switch their practices because despite the way the industry works, to where basically it's okay to have a loss, and there's a lot of subsidies. Real farmers, the real owners, they own nice trucks. They have big tractors. Being a farmer is a sexy thing, okay? Because you get to deal with the big machinery. It's all expensive. It's all big. You just keep getting bigger and bigger, and it's amazing, right? So they are very comfortable with their lives the way it is. Incentives. Using smart contract, we now can say, okay, well, how do we reward farmers to increase biodiversity of land, which, by the way, what creates topsoil. So the more biodiversified your topsoil is, the more topsoil you have, and to build it, you kind of make sure you kind of build it. So it's a longer journey. There are interesting ways we can do it. For example, one of the ways is saying, okay, so green carbon offset, right? So people buy land, they plant trees, and then they, package it and sell it. And you can trade all that. We actually can do it better with the farming, because we can show with much more precision how much offset we have actually done. And we can also measure the biodiversity. So a lot of interesting things are happening. For example, our chickens are going to be on blockchain. So you can go and see that our tractor moved. You will see that our cows are moved every single day. And that after the cows, you have the tractor of chickens that goes in and, you know, digs in. That is happening because now we're connecting also the drones, right? So the drones for farming. Now that goes into the data analysis. What do we collect on the drones? How do we program the drones to go? Opportunities are so big and it's much needed, and people will pay top dollar for that. So to me, opportunity is in that. How do we connect the technology to be able to create solutions right now? Because then we can incentivize farmers to go in and say, okay, you know, I'll do it. There's a money in it and there's better money in it. So that's one thing. And then another thing I think there is a huge opportunity is average age of a farmer is something like 70 years. So we are in the next 10 years going to witness biggest transfer of wealth, land wealth in the history, okay, in the history of America. Because it's just very, there's not many young farmers. They all move out and they're not interested in that, right? So what we're seeing is a lot of transition of people like us who are technologists that are coming in and actually buying the land and saying, what can we do? How can we create a better practices and empower our ecosystem? So the way we're doing it in the Moonridge Ranch is that we're building the system, the ecosystem that also kind of empowers our neighboring farms to come in and implement our systems to be cool, you know, to do all these things, and most importantly, start seeing the effect of the difference of the dollars in their pocket. So I think those are the big opportunities that I'm seeing.
Yeah, and I think you're calling out some key things right around data, drones, bringing in image mapping data on not just what it's capturing, but then also going down into the soil to the farms themselves, right? Bringing in the sensor set. So we were talking yesterday about the Internet of Things and edge connectivity and how that plays a role in just many different industries, and agriculture is one of those. Being able to deploy sensors throughout a farm in terms of the land, but then also bring that connectivity into the equipment, back into kind of the operations of the entire farm as well. That all relays back, all generates data. It all can then lead into predictive maintenance or predictive analytics, which now can create a self-sustaining farm. Not to jump ahead of ourselves, but there's a lot going on there as well. So Wendy, with that, I'm gonna take a breath and I'm gonna bring it over to you. What are you seeing as the current state as well around agriculture and farming? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was being respectful.
Yeah.
So what I believe is the most important thing is collaboration, right? Because we all are working on so many different, we're all invested in so many different things, right? And when you look, especially today, right? And I'm going to go back with what Brian was talking about. You know, one of the projects when I first invested in Producers Market, I was like, oh my gosh, your technology, how can this change the world? Because it really can, right? And so that was when I brought on, you know, the United Nations Environmental Program, and we partnered with SIF, which is Sustainable Indian Finance, and then the CBNF program. The government of India literally has created a program where they have dedicated a huge budget where they grant these self-help groups in India that have 11 million women farmers, right? And those women farmers, we're talking they're making like $1, you know, when they go and sell their product, right? And they don't have cell phones and Androids, but what they're doing is each self-help group gets a mobile phone, right? And every week those groups meet together and they put in all their data, right? And this is one of the most magnificent programs I've ever seen, because what's happened in that specific state in India called Andhra Pradesh is they had a high rate of suicide because these farmers were using pesticides that were killing the land. The people were, you know, getting sick, etc. When they instituted this program where they brought in the old traditional way of fertilizing their land, literally this whole group of people, we're talking millions and millions of people, have completely uplifted the whole community. And as it made their whole communities to say, you know what, this is profitable because we're getting more money for our product because it's now organic, right? And now they're making more money. The people have better, mental capabilities of being happy and understanding like the food they eat is who they are, right? And then they're seeing a more of the people and the organizations and the companies in India actually buying their product through this whole process, right? And so when you think about, if it wasn't for that collaboration of bringing our technology to bring the storytelling and traceability and the government of India and then the United Nations collaborating together to put this together, this would have never happened, right? And we've already onboarded like 500,000. It's going to be 6 million by 2023. And so also bringing that back is we're taking that same program to the Caribbean, where they have all this like land that they're doing nothing with and creating regenerative farming. So, I actually say to everybody, like, how do we look at everything that we're doing? Because if we could collaborate, we could make a bigger impact, right? And so, when I look at like what I'm investing in, another company I'm invested in is called IGP Energy, where they have the patent to enable any diesel engine 50 to 70% less carbon emissions. So when you're thinking about farming and you're thinking about the soil, when you're thinking about all this stuff, right? It's like, how do we look at it? Well, when we ship that food, right? Those ships are one of the biggest, problems with the oceans, right? And so if we can actually retrofit all of those diesel engines to be better for the environment, look at the impact this will have on the world in carbon emission, right? And so that's, in my mind, when I hear everyone speaking, and I looked you all up, it's so cool. I love it because I'm a huge, I love Sweet Green. It's a couple, doors away from me. And I've been a vegetarian my whole life. And, I come from a little town in Ohio where I grew up with farms, right? I've been a vegetarian since I was 7 years old when I ran into one of my family's freezers of 300 cows hanging. I believe we can literally change the mindset of everyone if we can just show the world that, what we're eating. And if we can have traceability, because I think people today want to know what they're putting in their bodies, and everything shows, the better you eat, the better you're going to be living longer and healthier lives, right? And so, in my mind, I think when you're looking at investing, it's like, what impact is this going to have in the world? Because look at us, money doesn't matter really much anymore. We're all at home, right? And, you kind of see, what is it that, if we all die tomorrow from COVID, what have we done for this world? So I think it's so important that people look at what they're eating. I think they, whether, you're just, a viewer watching this or you're an investor, like, how do we invest in making this world a better place and creating traceability, transparency, and also showing that whole supply chain is very important.
Brian, I saw you on mute. Did you have something to add on that?
No, I just agreeing with Wendy, and I think what jumps out at me is that one of the things we've talked about over the last few months is there's actually even though the world economy shut down and there were all sorts of massive dislocations, companies still needed to raise money, and yet investors were in a situation where it was very clear which investments were not good because the companies could not sort of survive or thrive in a economic shutdown situation, and so that didn't bode well for post shutdown or peacetime, as they say, as we're saying now. And so, there's been this crush of investment into the fewer really good investments. And so what we're seeing is a lot of oversubscribed rounds where, companies that are doing well and raising money are in a situation where they have more money being thrown at them than they can handle right now. But what I think now cuts across all these companies, and not just in the food industry, but you see this literally weekly in the sort of investment and venture capital media, is some adherence, whether it's just talking points or actually walking the walk, to impact and to ESG. And so we, Almanac, as a fund, are sort of redoing the way that we do our own internal scorecard, redoing our scorecard metrics that we use to evaluate our investments both in due diligence and after we've invested, ways to scorecard our entire portfolio and measure our impact. And I think funds are making up their own systems because it's, there's not really a platform we can all use to track our impact. But that's fine because people are wanting to share that information in a sort of corporate sustainability and corporate responsibility way. And that's a really good sign. And at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a lot of talk in the food community, or what's going to happen? Are we going to all sit on our couch and binge eat because we're stressed and, come out of this really unhealthy? Are we actually going to be cooking and making our own bread and planting our first garden and coming out of this much healthier? Or are people going to be so is a certain part of the population going to be so impoverished that they won't have any food choices whatsoever? And we're still kind of figuring out exactly where that's going to go. But what has been clear, and there's now a lot of data, not just anecdotal evidence, is yes, people planted gardens for the first time, and that's not going away. Yes, people are cooking more and like ratcheting up in terms of cooking skills in a way that they're not going to slide back to only being able to make cereal for themselves. So these trends are going to persist, and if anything, it argues for people, again, as we've been talking about in the local food movement, people wanting to know where their food comes from, which now we talk about as supply chain transparency, big picture.
Absolutely. And just to dive a little deeper into that, so going big into the bigger picture of opportunities, so looking at kind of the story I painted around the IoT scenario, right, with sensors into the farms, what that can lead to with data driven farms. We'd love to hear from each of you the areas of opportunity when it comes to agriculture and ag technology, because when we look at it from, again, that future of connectivity playing a role, we look at newer technologies like blockchain, also drones, and others playing a role. When we look at how data and artificial intelligence or machine learning is being applied, I mean, this also can change not just us as individual consumers, but this can change an entire industry. I mean, this can completely revolutionize what we know as agriculture today by having these things. So no longer will you be dependent maybe on a particular region. Instead, you can actually take data from said region and apply that in a new created, false environment, enclosed, for instance, that replicates the same environment. So would love to hear from each of you where you're seeing other areas of opportunities that investors should be paying attention to, but then also where entrepreneurs, maybe there's a gap that they should be filling to start building in as well. So would love to hear from that. Wendy, let's start with you. Areas of opportunity you're seeing that investors and entrepreneurs should be paying attention to. You're on mute right now, just let you know.
Oh my gosh, dream come true. Vegan food. Woohoo! I mean, first of all, I love at the beginning I was like, oh my gosh, Beyond Burger, right? Like this is so exciting. And then you realize like it's just as unhealthy as a hamburger, but it's vegetarian, right? And it's vegan. So I think the future of like food that is like healthy for you, that is vegan, is the future. I mean, first of all, as I said, I'm a lifelong vegetarian. I would do anything for a milk that tasted like milk that was vegetarian, right? Because whenever I see those documentaries about cows and everything like that, I, kind of get like, oh my God, help me. So I think, what we're going to see in the future, as you see it right now, when you see Beyond Meat and all these like announcements with Impossible Burgers and all this other stuff, you see that there's a lot of innovation coming up through this, right? And there, there's now seafood and all these different companies. So I think that is the future. I think that we're going to see a lot about that. I think we're going to see, and I'm always interested in that, as somebody who's been in this for a long time. And then, and the other part of this, I also see all the big companies. We're working right now with Unilever, we're working with L'Oreal and palm oil. So working with a lot of big companies that, we're a little bit, kind of step back a little bit about all this innovation, but now we see it that a lot of these companies now are very interested in technology and innovation and really bring, as much as a lot of them don't want to be, right? Because, when they look at like their, traceability of of their products. It's not very good. But like a lot of people now are realizing, you know what, we've got to bring, you know, our chief sustainability officer, we have to bring that person into the mix. And really, I think that is the most important thing that we can say that is happening right now, because I'm in a million calls right now with the UNGA and Climate Week and everything, and hearing about all this and seeing the impact that this is going to have when you get all these Fortune 50, 100 companies to recognize the importance of innovation and traceability and transparency.
Absolutely. And even to add on to that, I mean, you bring up the milk, so alternative dairy sources, for instance. And we've talked about 3D printing of food. We've talked about the future of food here on VCTV, but not to go too deep into that on my rant here, but Oatly, so the oat milk, the alternative dairy or the alternative milk source, actually has just announced plans to potentially go public here in the next few months as well, which will lead to a multi-billion-dollar company that, in another one, I should say, in the alternative foods sector as well. So you're calling out a great opportunity for those that are in it. It takes a long time. Brian's shaking his head. You can agree with all of us here. It takes a long time to build these types of companies. Do not think they're overnight successes, but they are great opportunities to start building in. And to Wendy's point, there is a huge amount of population out there that are looking for these types of alternative foods, right? There's allergies that we have, there's problems that we may have in terms of diuretics that just need these types of foods, and they don't all exist yet. So again, to Wendy's point, that's an opportunity for all of you listening out there.
Let me throw this out. Our bodies are not meant to, are basically not to digest processed foods, right? Mm-hmm. So the better we can eat, the more healthier we're going to be. So, mm-hmm. Just thinking about every time you put something in your stomach, think about how that's going to go through, right? And when you think you eat more healthier and natural and, let's say vegan, there's proof that you're more healthier. So there you go. Mm-hmm. That's it. I'm not like.
Absolutely. Listen, absolutely. And that goes not just to us as individuals, but that also goes to everything that's around us, right? From the animals to ourselves to the future products that we use in those farms. I just read an article about using plant-based, and this kind of goes a little back to the futurist. As I say this, everyone will get the reference if you haven't rent the movie this weekend on Netflix. But plant-based semiconductors and superchargers, where plants are actually looking at using, and we've talked about this with algae power in the past as well, but there are alternative ways to use additional plants for other things as well. So with that, Brian, to you, areas of opportunity that you're seeing additionally within the industry of agriculture and ag tech?
Well, I agree with what's been said, and no, I wasn't shaking my head at the growth of Oatly, and no, it's been amazing, and I feel like it just does continue to grow in terms of more and more households having a plant-based dairy in their fridge right alongside cow dairy. But I mean, I guess to dive a little bit more into automation and sensors, I still think that some of the adoption is fairly slow. I mean, most tractors now have some sort of GPS farm log where you can output data from the tractor and load that into, the farmer can load that into their computer. I don't know. I mean, Caterpillar and those companies are struggling in some ways right now, John Deere and others. So I don't know about, clearly there's a need for automation to help with labor issues throughout the food chain. And that's sort of an ongoing concern. And you've seen some big exits in that in the last few years. I don't see as much happening right there that's about to sort of go mainstream farm wide. What I think you are seeing, again, like every mom and pop restaurant having to be on some sort of online platform, is every farmer is, upgrading software. So companies like Conservice are just exploding in terms, Conservice is a sort of QuickBooks for farmers, but it interacts with your farm log data. So you can literally say, I spent this much money on this field and here's the return that I got. So it makes it very easy for farmers to do accounting. And that company is growing incredibly. Some of its competitors are growing. So farmers are being forced to digitize their own books, and that means all their other data. I don't think it's being used dramatically right now to go after sustainability goals. It could be used for that, right? Where Conservice could sort of prompt its users to think about scenarios where they're using less fertilizer, or suggesting ways to increase crop diversity and mix up the rotation. And you see companies like Farmer Business Network, which actually does have 30% plus penetration in American corn and soy, where they are in fact trying to incentivize their users towards sustainability, because people are curious, and they might even be able to incentivize it where they're getting to sell their product for more. There's a lot happening in restaurant automation right now. I think smart vending machines and food vending is going through a renaissance right now. Obviously, we're not putting them in the same spaces because co-working spaces used to be an important place to put those sorts of vending machines, but now you're seeing them in hotels and apartment buildings and hospitals and airports. I don't know, there's definitely a lot of tech. And lastly, about your point about sort of more distributed food system, I think again of our investment in Smallhold, the mushroom producer in New York City, who's about to roll out in Texas. And that is their model, that they can build these farms very quickly in a small space, or even a largish space. And it's not all coming from one part of the country. They could literally stand one up in Hawaii that could supply the Hawaiian island chain.
I couldn't agree more that that's something we're probably going to see a lot more of, based on, again, conversations you and I have had, but also what I've been reading as well. There's more and more of that opportunity starting to float by. Irina, to you, before we get to the lightning round here, what areas of opportunity are you starting to see that we haven't already mentioned here, or would like to further comment on?
I think farm to farm is something to think about, creating a platform. And I mentioned that the last time we talked on the subject, and I think that that's one of the things that will allow us to empower people to go away and do smaller size farming, because the sharing economy in farms are there, right? However, it's very localized, so it's not as effective. And having my own experience buying the tractors, buying the chipper, buying the, you just buy everything, and it's huge, right? Like fans, which is just, how do you fans things, right? Makes it to where it makes sense to create some kind of bargaining, right? Bargain system to where farmer not necessarily constantly buying and selling stuff, but have ability to trade. That really benefits them from the tax point, and then empowers their ecosystem. And then most importantly, it allows people to come in and buy smaller portions of land, like 20 acres. And for Texas, like 50 acres, 100 acres. It makes it possible and manageable, because if you know that there's that infrastructure there, and driving an hour away is totally fine, and there's just no way to connect 1 hour of scope of driving right now. So we have these co-ops, we have this kind of structures that are centralized, but I really believe opportunity lies in kind of creating really truly decentralized network that allows farmer to farmer trade. I have too many ducks right now, so we gotta call the ducks, because if we don't call them, they're going to be a problem, right? Because the ecosystem of life works is not such a way that we want to project into our reality. So connecting people to food is important, but I think that that's a big opportunity, and we know how to build those networks. So I'm seeing, since we last talked, there's 3 companies now that I am talking to that are providing those solutions, and the racing to developing it. So yeah, the world is moving fast. We say this would be nice to have, and then next week there's 3-5 people that are building, that are have the test net and all of that. So we're definitely accelerating in technology world now. Farming is a little bit slower. And last one, I think the opportunity to buy bigger pieces of land and to kind of create an ecosystem in a way to where you can maybe bring in those that are that are working hands and do some kind of profit sharing with them, to really empower them and guide them through this regenerative farming. So I think that buying land especially in Texas, is a great way because we do have 2 farming seasons and, relatively stable ecology.
Absolutely. Well, and as we hit the lightning round, I want to come to our round for everybody for closing thoughts and any shout outs that you have. Again, this is a very important topic to our world today. So I want to make sure, like Brian and with Belltown Farms, as I will shamelessly promote them, that if you do have a farm of choice and something of that nature, definitely do please give it a shout out. But so closing thoughts, where can everyone find you? And then if you have a shout out, please do feel free to give it. So Wendy, let's start with you. Any closing thoughts that you have here on today's topic and where the future of technology will play a role in agriculture and farming technology, or excuse me, farming industries as well? And then where can everyone find you online? And you're on mute. Oh, you got to unmute.
Can you hear me now? Am I good? Because it looks slow. Okay, cool. So lightning round, like I would say this, I think, what we should all hope for is that we can go to a restaurant, we can go to a retailer, we can scan that barcode, know exactly where that food comes from, see how exactly that food was made, right? What was what was it used to grow? Is it with pesticides? Is it not, right? Because I think that is what everybody wants right now, is understanding what we're putting into our bodies. And I think that's what's the most important thing. I think that now engaging the small farmer is super important and enabling them access to better outputs to enable them to earn more money and have equity in this whole supply chain, as we know, they have a very little percentage. I hope that, again, we have more opportunities for vegetarians and vegans to have more alternatives. I love Oatly, like you mentioned, but it certainly doesn't, take a place of milk in the taste for me, right? And so just to have a lot more alternatives and have a lot more people supporting on the seed level entrepreneurs in this space, I think is super important, because I think when we look at people, sadly, it's still, women are definitely less, represented when it comes to funding. And when you look at the whole marketplace, it's so important to enable equality in this world. So thank you, whether it's, and from the ground up approach. So thank you.
Wonderful. And where can everyone find you to continue the conversation?
And to find me, you can go to wendydiamond.com and you can look at all my investments. You can look a link to my foundation, and you can look at the 20 companies that I'm invested in, which are all making this world a better place. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Wendy. And also to our audience, if you don't remember what Wendy mentioned in the beginning of the show, do definitely check out the Women's Entrepreneurship Day organization, so WEDO, and you can find it by contacting Wendy as well if you're unable to remember that, and we will put the web address in the show notes as well for you.
And
But
that's
definitely
an
check out.
official day in the world on November 19th that U.S. Congress, Governor Cuomo, Mayor Garcetti, and like King Guitar, and a lot of people have proclaimed to empower, celebrate, and support women in business to alleviate poverty. So we're a ground up movement, to enable everyone access to capital. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you. Brian, to you, closing thoughts, shout out, where can everyone find you?
I think LinkedIn is probably the easiest place to find me, and please do reach out, anyone who just wants to talk about food and agriculture investments or entrepreneurs in the space. Always happy to connect with folks. I think I agree that we need to really be optimistic that this crisis can be a turning point to improve the food system. I do feel wellness and health and food as medicine are becoming more mainstream throughout all of this. We're still not there, clearly. There's a lot of improvement in the food system, a lot of access issues and food insecurity that remains even amidst abundance. So there's clearly a lot of work to do, but it is a really exciting time to be in food and ag investment, no question.
Absolutely. And again, a shout out to Belltown Farms. I'll do it for Brian out there. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. And last but not least, Arena, closing thoughts, where can everyone find you online?
Thank you. I think that blockchain technology is finally at a point where we can see adoption and real use case benefits. Besides the gambling aspect of the cryptocurrency. So I see that a lot of problems that we have mentioned and a lot of solutions that will be delivered. I think 80% of those problems we can solve with application of blockchain technology. I think that it's there and it's upcoming. Blockchain is going through a growth cycle right now, so its adoption is on high priority for many companies. The industry, the world understands that people now know the difference, that there is a currency, but there's a technology. And so the technology itself makes a huge difference, but also a currency too, because you can tokenize different things and create different reward systems and a trading system that are automated, that are in a smart contract, to where there's no more need for those intermediaries. And I think that those companies that are creating solutions in the blockchain are big opportunities right now, that are making difference right now, that in a year from now we're going to look at and we're going to say, oh, interesting, I can see what I'm eating right now. It's not going to be a big scope. We're not going to have a big adoption, but you'll start seeing products that are on a blockchain and they'll cost more money. And now, most importantly, that marketing finally is there to where people want to pay more money as long as they know what they're eating. So people have this need to be connected to their food, right? To understand it, as you guys mentioned that. And that's important and it's powerful, and there's opportunities as well. And of course, again, real estate, farmland, huge opportunities. I'm convinced that that is one of the largest opportunities in our lifetime, just because in the next 10 years, we're going to see a huge transfer of value, right? From the dying farmers into kind of the new hands. And so getting on top of that train, right now, I think is a great benefit. And again, blockchain and tokenization, and that can play a big role too, because now we can have a groups of people coming in and buying real estate. So you can co-own with 10 people, 100-acre ranch, and you can either make it as one ranch operation with regenerative farming, or you can actually create 10 lots, right? Where in the center you can have, there's so many beautiful models, and these things are happening now. So investors, get yourself on board and start investing. And LinkedIn or Google me, I'm available.
Wonderful. And thank you all so much for your time today. And thank you for your thoughts and insights. To our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out to each of our investors and panelists today. If you'd like to continue the conversation, make sure to add context. Thank you, Brian. Make sure to add context where you met them, but also to the conversation and the topic at hand today. And also do reach out if you'd like to continue the conversation, not just on the investment side, but also to their sustainability, farming, and agriculture efforts, as each of them have done a ton in that space and will continue to do so, and are thought leaders in it. So definitely reach out to continue those conversations. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. We have a huge episode coming up just after this, along with more all week. So get ready and stay tuned. And these are double mega enormous packed episodes of VCTV every single day this week. And with that, a big thank you to the entire LATOKEN team for bringing us all together and making VCTV possible every single day. I'm Kyle Ellicott. You can find me at Kyle Ellicott on all social media. We'll be back here after a short break for more VCTV. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye. Thanks, Irina. Bye.